If you're interested in improving your health, then digestion is a great place to start. You're probably wondering what the hell these are. What the hell is that?
We'll have to take a look at him inside. Right.
These are Scobies, and this is my quick guide to showing you how to make kombucha. So you're going to need a good sugar. Here I use just a simple organic sugar. Then your water filter. Essentially you want to make sure that you're taking out chlorine, some selection of saucepans, scales, a measuring jar, and obviously the spoon to stir the tea. And then whichever tea really takes your fancy. The first one was a mixed berry, and then just a selection. If you want to mix them up, you use different teas. Sometimes a combination can be quite interesting. And as I mentioned later, I do sometimes use like a green tea that's stimulating and a valerian tea which is relaxing. Measuring out your water, you don't really need to be too specific. I generally use a smaller amount to get the tea boiling, and I'd say I probably use between 3 to 4, maybe up to 5 tea bags per litre, but again that depends how strong you want the flavour. So just topping up the tea, because I'd had about 10 tea bags in there, so I just wanted to make sure there was enough water. If you wanted to lessen the amount of time that you're boiling the tea for, you could soak them overnight so they're already started to release the flavour of the tea bags before you start to boil. I generally use around 100 grams of sugar or 100 ml of per litre, but it really depends how strong you want the kombucha to be. If you've got a sweeter kombucha that's left for longer, you are going to end up with a more sour, bitter tasting kombucha. If you go slightly lighter on the sugar, so less sugar, it's going to take a little longer to ferment, and it's not going to be as strong at the end. As I've made about 3 to 4 litres, I've added around 300 grams of sugar. Now of course I am just using a kind of bog standard regular organic sugar here, white sugar. If you did want to use a coconut sugar, you could even use honey, coconut palm, nectar, agave syrup. It really depends on how much you're going to make. I mean, if you're using coconut sugar, it's going to end up being quite an expensive kombucha. So I've added some cool water to this just to bring the temperature down. It's still hot enough to melt the sugar. Just really making sure that I agitate the tea to ensure as much flavour comes out of the tea bags as possible. So this is just the mixed berry tea here. That's what gives it that nice ruby red colour. So once I've squeezed all the rest of the water out of the tea bags, that is my, what I call my kombucha base. Essentially, it's ready to go. You're going to need a glass jar, like something like this. This is, I think, a 2 to 3 litre jar. And then something to cover the top with, so some paper towel, some elastic bands. I have also got some of this kind of scrap material left. I've used this because it's a bit more durable, it doesn't tear, and there's not fibres that come off of it. So do excuse the sound there, I forgot to turn the mic on. However, what I'm essentially saying is you want to make sure that when you do pour the kombucha in, that it's not hot. You want to make sure that that's returned or come down to room temperature or around body heat temperature. Pour the kombucha base in nice and slowly, and I always just like to make sure that all those Scobies are aligned, floating at the top. Essentially that will probably take around a week to 2 weeks to start to ferment. The longer you leave it, of course, the stronger it's going to get. Ready to put the netting on the top and the elastic band. So just taking the last peek there at the teas that I'd had going. I generally drink them down to fairly low to the bottom before I top up. If you have a small amount of kombucha in the bottom, it will actually help the new batch ferment quicker. I hope that gave you a really good idea. Just to recap, all you really need is a good filtered water, a tea that you like, you can use a regular sugar. Make sure that when you clean out the jars that you use boiling filtered water. You will get into the flow of making some really nice kombuchas. You can experiment with taste. And of course, those Scobies will keep growing and multiplying, and you can always give one away to a friend to get them started. I hope you enjoyed that guide. If you've got any questions, leave a comment below. Of course, subscribe, and I'll speak to you soon. And obviously, the longer you leave it. So it is a fermentation, and obviously the longer you leave it. So I've read in various places that people suggest using particular teas. I rotate my tea.